Hi everyone, I'm Kayla, and welcome back to Rock the World with Kay and Michelle. We explore stories of courage, resilience, and innovation, sharing insights, family stories, and discussions that remind us every voice matters. Today, we're talking about something Michelle and her boys have practiced for years, karate, and how it builds confidence, discipline, and identity. Michelle Turner, the creator of Movement Lesson, is a globally recognized expert in infant and child development. As a mother, author, presenter, and movement specialist, Michelle has built one of the most extensive libraries dedicated to understanding and improving human movement. Before we start, a quick note. This episode is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And if you notice pauses in our conversation, that's intentional. That's part of how we talk.
How are you? Yep, I'm Michelle. Michelle Movement Lesson, mom first. Uh, did all this just to help my son they said he'd never walk or talk, and karate was a part of it. That's what we're talking about today.
Michelle, for someone who has never heard the term before, what exactly is karate? Is it a synonym for martial arts?
Well, first I want to say it's not like in the movies, all right? And when my son came running home, my older son, and said, Mom, I take this test. I'm a yellow belt because he was doing karate in summer camp. And I was thinking of, the Karate Kid, and I'm just thinking, oh, my kid's gonna just learn how to beat up people. Uh, Farthest thing from the truth. Martial arts, first of all, it is an umbrella term. It refers to different methods. Usually each culture has its own method. I am of Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is based off of Korean, and but he took that as a all directions. So we can kick and hit and do hits in our sport as one. But these different movement systems, similar to what you might have heard is karate, taekwondo, judo, Brazilian, jiu-jitsu. I actually got to mount Henner Gracie, probably one of the biggest highlights in my life. Kung fu, there's fans, there's all sorts of different forms, bow staff, with martial arts, but it is a school, it is a discipline. It is not something that you are learning to do harm to somebody. I would surprise most people that what I have, people wouldn't think of me as being doing martial arts. But it is a form of protection. It did start in Okinawa, Japan, which is karate, which is a one specific martial arts, right? But again, karate focuses on several core elements, which are strikes or hits, kicks, blocks, stances, forms, also what's called kata. Um, and these movements are practiced repeatedly, so students develop not only strength, but more so it's about coordination. Knowing a vision is a really big part in martial arts and control. One of the reasons that I really appreciated Chuck Norris, and that's where we ended up going to, is that they actually really enhance the environment for special needs. It is about doing your best. So not only did we go to sign my son up, my oldest, we said, well, what about my other son? And Mr. Monday, our master, he's a 6th degree black belt, and he's like, we'll give it a month. So he didn't say no, but he knew that, because Graham was still nonverbal and such. And this is one of the biggest game changers. You think of a lot of therapies, it was probably one of the biggest game changers in my son's life and in my life too, because I ended up doing it.
How did you pick the specific type?
Really, it was just the luck of the draw because they were doing it in the summer class, and so my older son was doing it in summer camp. Our city has a really good summer program, and And so he came home with his little certificate and he's like, Mom, if I do the test, I'm a yellow belt. And so we actually went and interviewed the instructor, went to the dojo, as you might have heard, and to see if this was a good fit for for the kids.
Why martial arts?
Um, People think again that you're now learning how to fight. What you're learning really how to do is know who you are, right? To be able to know where you stand with someone and where to stand and how your body moves, um, repeating things over and over again. A lot of people think it's about patterning and repetition, but like the biggest thing I was afraid of was fighting. It's one of the biggest things I miss, Friday night fights. I would pay a lot of money right now just to go in and fight. It's not fight like I leave on an ambulance stretcher. We get 3 minutes to go against somebody and you go down the queue. And yes, I did fight with 12-year-olds as well as 47-year-olds. Um, and it just is like I said, it's just you're learning really a lot about yourself. I learned so much about myself, much less watching my children mature through martial arts.
Is it weekly class?
It's more than weekly class. It is a school. You are going to school. If you think you can go to karate and not do your homework, it is usually 3 nights a week. Usually 2 nights tights of learning forms, what we talked about, poses and certain techniques. And then there's fighting. You cannot, not go to them. And then also with Mr. Norris, we've actually gone to Vegas, and so I've met Chuck Norris and his brother Aaron Norris. They are there as representing the form versus being the movie star. And learning, it's a world-class championships, but it's held in Las Vegas every year. And again, you get to be around people around the world that are just into the Chun Do or the Chuck Norris system, as an example.
What does a karate class look like?
Karate class is usually you're at your level. That was actually one of the best things about karate, that Graham had his peers and Gordon had their peers, because they were 2 years apart in age, but they were also different various degrees of method. Um, and one year they said for the month of May for Mother's Day special, moms get to do karate for free. And I said, well, why am I sitting here watching them do it if I can go do it? And I was the first person to stand up. And that's how I started doing karate. So I did karate for 6 years with the kids. So it was actually a really good family bonding as well.
Walk us through the physical side of a class. What
So
movements would we actually see happening?
So most classes are done with like a two-way window, so the parents are there and separate for the kids. Again, parents are very recommended to join, but you're going to come in, you show your respect, you bow, coming into the room. Your belt has to be tied a certain way. You always have to have a cup on, whether you're female or male, and you're in your uniform. Your uniform has to be clean, it's respect. Um, you put your shoes away, you're not allowed to go in and be sloppy because usually you have a big bag of stuff sometimes, especially if you have fighting gear. You'll bow, um, bow with the face, not head down. Um, and then if you go to, let's say if I'm going to fight against you, again, I would bow. I would bow to my instructor. My instructor out in the dojo is always sir. I wouldn't call him, Mr. Munding or something like that, because that's your master when you're out there. A lot of karate studios have dummies and stuff that you can fight with if you're not fighting a human, that you can learn, like especially if you're doing like a running fly kick, you're going to go and hit. So there's equipment, and there's usually mirrors in the dojo and stuff, so you can watch your forms and how you're working.
Each movement requires attention, timing, coordination, and motor planning. There was also a moment when Graham suddenly understood language. What happened?
So going back to what happens in the karate studio, um, first you have your warm-ups, right? Warm-ups get everybody on the same plane and a teacher can see where the kids are at. It helps calm down the kids that are maybe a little bit, attention, needing that attention or so forth. It calms them down, gets them focused. One of the things that I loved about karate, again, the structure, uniforms, belts, Mondays and Wednesdays, let's say. So Graham having autism, it was a good structure for him. It wasn't like, come on, we're going here, come on, we're going there. It's very structured. And but warm-ups at first for Graham were all over the place. And the kids, the our master or Mr. Money would say, like 10 jumping jacks, Sammy. And then Sammy would say, 1, 2, and everybody would doing jumping jacks. I wish I had this on video, but back then we didn't have videos on the phones. It sounds so archaic now to say that, but
Yeah.
it does. What we have now, we're so spoiled, I'm telling you. And we're only talking 20 years, what, less than 20 years ago. But one day Cram was like, and you could just tell we used to joke around, there's a hamster on the wheel, I mean, like things were turning. And he really realized, I think that to him was the birth of language, that he said do 10 jumping jacks. Everyone was doing jumping jacks and someone was counting to 10. He still stimmed a lot back then. Stimulations are when he first put on his gi. Gi is what they call the uniform. He was just, he was excited. But and when the first time that he asked Graham to count to 10, you know what I mean? Like he just stopped and he just to process everything. But what they gave him is they included him. They allowed him to do it at his level. That's again the brilliance of it, where you might see as a belt, someone might be a yellow belt and then a yellow with white striped belt, and then it would go to a different color. These are different ranks. I was never a black belt. I'm a red belt with a black stripe, which is one away. My kids are both black belts, but so again, they're used to different levels of abilities, engagements. You're not going to do form number 9 with the yellow belt or overteach them because they just can't handle it in their scale of memory or age. It takes a lot longer though to become a black belt in our methods, about 6 years. And it's very strong. And by the way, I will say too, in our studio, you cannot bully somebody or use karate any way, shape, or form to do harm to somebody else. If you did, no questions asked, you're removed from the school. The school is there to teach you martial arts, not how to be aggressive.
Do you think that structure helped Graham learn?
Oh, I think all kids need structure. I'm a big structure person. And when bedtime is 7:30, let's say you start getting ready for bed, bath time, it's always 7:30. Kids don't do, there's always an exception, but kids I don't feel do well when suddenly one day it's 10 o'clock, the next day it's 12 o'clock, the next day it's 2 o'clock. That's why we go to school the way we are. We're learning structure. Structure can be looked at as a bad thing. I think it's in some aspects it's a good thing. So the two things that we did in our house that were very important, we did Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, and then eventually Boy Scouts. Both my boys are Life Scouts. But again, uniform every night, every week when it was the same thing. So for Graham, once he was in a gi, if there was variety, he still was contained. He still had his gi on, he still was in the dojo, he still had that consistency. So each class was different. Maybe today we're working on hitting. Graham at first could only hit if someone stood in front of him with the punching bag, and it's about this big for the little kids. Then he could hit. But if it wasn't there, like you have to, do an imaginary, excuse me, I haven't done karate in a while and I'm sitting in a chair, but you have to do your imaginary punches, right? Graham could, if he didn't have somebody in front of him, he was gone. But we all had patience, let him learn a little bit longer, taking his time. But he progressed and also too, that's the first time he started to see that progression being achievements in himself. So he started to seek those things out on again, this is about your self-awareness. So I felt the structure especially for being nonverbal, autism, cortical visual impairment, karate was a really good area for him to progress. But I had patience, and so did everybody else.
How does the belt system work?
So the belt system works on not necessarily your age, but some people, in some areas, it is your age. Like you can't suddenly come in and 3 months later test for black belt, right? You have to go through cycles. So like if you've just tested, you can't test again for another, let's say, 3 months or something. It depends on your school, what you're going for. And so you will learn your forms. But guess what? Just because it's been 3 months, if you haven't shown up to class or you're not, been practicing at home, because we'd have to, give in our practice sheets and so forth. Also on our sheet, it had to be, what are your three acts of kindness? What did you do randomly? Did you help mom with groceries? Did you help? Made kids, again, think about who they were as citizens. And you don't get to try out. You have to be invited. So again, you've done your homework, you've been showing up to class, you can test this weekend. You get stripes on your belt. So you might see a kid with a little black stripe. I can't test unless I have 3 black stripes. That shows again the child or the adult when they're ready to go to the next phase of fighting. However, what I again like about our system, it was about doing your best. So Graham couldn't do certain things that the other kids could, but he could still test. Some kid studios, you have to watch it if your child's special needs require you to do it as if everything was okay. So in the Chuck Norris system, there are black belts that are in wheelchairs. One of my clients who's completely blind, she has prosthetic eyes. She was in karate with us. I would hold her belt and let her know to the right to the left as she organized herself in the classroom. And it's a great experience, and the kids just see everybody else trying hard versus being different.
Accessibility.
It it's accessibilities, but also again, when you look at someone saying just do your best, it doesn't matter where they're from. You have to watch it. Even you get parents that maybe karate's not cheap, and parents are doing their best to come up with the funds. Mr. Mundy realized that to test usually cost money. And so a lot of kids weren't testing because the parents couldn't afford that extra money. So he learned to include everything in his prices. So, the kids didn't get left behind just because of financial pressures maybe that their parents are going through at the time. And so everybody tested, so when you join karate, you got a uniform, because again, those extras are what can bop a parent out. So when it's about doing your best, it's a really good environment for everybody, not just special needs. And it's cool.
Is testing regularly scheduled, or do students sign up when they feel ready?
It can be both. It's regularly scheduled. Like I said, you get your black stripe on your belt, and you have to get 3 black stripes to test. And again, in our system, each system is different, and then testings are usually done quarterly because there's always someone going through the cycle. For larger testing events, you might say in the morning we're doing the younger belts, and then you can come in when you're older. Black belt testing is usually done regionally. You have to pass some very rigorous testing. You have to go before the board. Usually it's like we had the board number 5, the Southwest District. And then so when Graham and Gordon tested, we had to go to Tucson. We had to drive to test.
And people retest.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. You can retest because you can't pass go without it. So if you do fail a test, um you can go back, and the same thing all the way even into black belt. Chuck Norris actually failed. So back then they did not have a color belt system, and he went from white belt to black belt. and he failed his first black belt test. But when he also was learning in Korea, he wasn't allowed to test because he was Caucasian. They wouldn't let him into the martial arts. Well, they knew that the boys were on because they were in the military, so they switched bases, so they didn't have the consistency, and they were lazy as far as they were concerned. They didn't show up. And Chuck Norris sat outside. You can read his book. It's really quite interesting. In the rain, in the whatever, and sat outside until someone said, "Okay, you can come in, you're different." But he failed his first black belt test and he passed his second. And he's also a third degree belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the BJJs. And that's how I knew Henner Gracie. Henner Gracie is one of the representatives from their father. And he was teaching. And I said, I didn't understand something. I asked a question. He goes, come here, mount me. And I was like, what? And he's like, mount me. And he got down on the floor. I got on top of him like a surfboard. Now, this boy is like 6'8", one of the best public speakers I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, I got to get on top of him and just do my form. And he was so cool. He goes, oh, that's so good. Oh, okay, over here. Okay, okay, you got it. But boy, I was in Vegas and everybody was like, I can't believe you got on top of Henner Gracie. Again, if you know what BJJ is, the fact that I've actually met him, but I actually got to be on top of him, it's a big deal. But I just love karate. It brings a smile to me.
Tell us about the day of Graham's black belt test.
That was probably his first most like really aware days. He was 12 years old, and I still remember him in the hotel, and he goes, Mom, I did it. I got here. And whether I get it or not, I'm really glad that I'm here. And that's a big moment.
Yeah.
And also too, we were told that because of Graham being hypotonic, it's a 4-hour test. It's a test. They test you, and you have to fight each other. You have to do your forms, all your forms, individually. You have to sit with respect while someone else is going through their test. Their test is just as important as yours. And we didn't know if Graham could sit 4.5 hours through the test, and he did it. He focused. He was there. He got it. And that was a big day. But you know what? It was also a big day for Mr. Munding, our master, because that showed his teaching. So it's not just that you're getting your black belt, it reflects upon who your teacher is, that they also have someone new. Because believe it or not, less than 1% of the people that started karate are actually black belts. That's how many people drop out. And matter of fact, when Graham first started, he was 6 years old and he was in the 3 to 5-year-olds, you know what I mean? And parents were rude. Excuse me, I'll say it. Oh, he's just gonna slow up the class. And I'm like, I hear you. You know what I mean? It wasn't like whisper. Oh, but you know what? My kid's a black belt and all those kids dropped out. So we did it.
That kind of accomplishment can reshape how a child sees themselves. Did earning those belts help Graham's confidence?
It's not only the confidence, when you know who you are, like it took me about 6 months to learn how to really hit someone because I was back here, maybe didn't have the eye contact. I think that's why I can do what I do with these podcasts and be on YouTube, because I can do this and come in and look you in the eye, or I can back off. I know who I am and where I am in space. And recently I actually shoved Graham and he got into, I'm like, okay, good, you still have it. Because we don't do it anymore. That's the problem with that black belt. I mean, once you're black belt, now you're going for secondary black belt. It's a lot of work, and with college and everything. So it's not that he quit. It's just it's phases of life, and we're okay with it. But once you're a black belt, that's another thing they teach you. You're always a black belt. Me, I just belted. I'll never be a black belt, so I can just say I took karate, but I can't say I did it.
Did he rejoin?
No, he hasn't. I've been thinking about it, but he would need me, and probably at this point I'm the one holding him up. I wouldn't say that I quit karate. Um, I was just about to belt and my parents turned 80 and the falls happened. It was probably the best decision I ever did. My mom passed away 7 months later. So had I been involved in what I would have had to, I would have missed her end of life. And sorry if I'm getting choked up, wasn't expecting that. So life changes. It ebbs and flows and that's what it is. And Graham now is a college graduate again because I think he's a black belt, then he's a life scout. Yes, he graduated high school, I understand that, but it takes you a different level. He's awarded with college, he's National Honor Society, he's Phi Beta Kappa. I think the fact of accomplishing things above and beyond what you're normally meant to do, I think that's what karate gives you I think every child should take martial arts.
What would you do to help him, and sorry about your loss?
Thank you. Again, it's a passage of life and it's okay, but I can't sit there. What I'm trying to say is I can't sit there and fault that I didn't do it because it was a conscious decision and it was a good decision and it was okay. Things just change. And I think that's where I'm at, having a parent, well, as a parent with special needs. Um, it might be hard sometimes as a parent, but when you have a special needs child, you just have to make life choices that you didn't expect to make. And it helps with those other life choices that you have to make that you didn't expect to make, which is again the passing of a parent or a loved one, or someone important. You just had your dog just passed away. These are cycles of life, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. And when you're more conscious of it and making it a choice to be a part of it versus running from it, it makes a big difference in who you are. But Graham really learned how to see. He still goes to the gym. He's every day or 5 days a week, I should say. He has game nights. He has his routine thanks to the routine he's always had. So again, for him to be special needs and the routine is necessary. He has a medical routine as well as a social routine.
My aunt a few years ago from cancer.
Yeah, life does happen, but I think when again with what karate teaches you from the belts on up. And another good thing too, even though my son has autism, right? And he doesn't have a friend per se. And I'm going to say that loosely. I'm not here to say my child doesn't have friends. But he had to teach karate, part of your black belt testing, he had to teach, he had to go up there and teach and do all of that. He was asked to do things that were above and beyond, but because they were in his structure, so Graham will teach someone how to play mahjong. He learns it so he can teach it. These qualities I didn't realize even for any of my kids, but it was a third degree black belt who'd came back. He was in the Navy and he ranked higher in the Navy because he could teach the crew how to do something. Teaching is a quality that again needs to be taught, needs to be shown. And I think you get that with these kind of skills. So it allows Graham to be in a social area that maybe someone at his level of autism wouldn't necessarily be in.
Why does martial arts work so well for many kids?
Again, structure. First of all, nobody's different in there other than your belt, right? You're all in your gi, right? You're a member. If you're gonna go to black belt testing, you now have to be a member. Your emblem of your patch is there. You're representing the school. When you leave there, if you go to regular school, you're always representing your martial arts. And other than being in a different level of belt, but we appreciate that I was once a yellow belt. Let me help a yellow belt versus, oh, you're just a yellow belt. That does not exist in karate. Um, and and so that structure is there. We actually had a neat thing too. We do a movie night, and we would set up the TV, and all the kids would come in and hang out. We'd order pizza, we'd have popcorn, so the parents could get a break on a Friday night. I was there and volunteering with the kids. We kind of did an obstacle course. There's obstacle courses that go on during your training, and different levels. But it was actually a 9-year-old. It was so cute. I learned to do when I was doing my free month a running phase kick. And a little 9-year-old turned around and said, Mrs. Turner, you're actually pretty good at this. Have you considered, so here's a little 9-year-old
Mm.
trying to encourage me to do karate. It's just, it's a different level of learning and opportunity, and then they get to leave and go into their own little, bubble and come back. But it's a really good community.
How does it align with your work?
How does it align with my work? First of all, I don't just do what I do as movement lesson or work on children. I practice it. I was at the gym this morning. Movement will always be a part of my life because if you don't move, it's you move it or you lose it, especially
Yeah.
I'm 61 years old. I'm strong. I'm very proud I could kick someone. I might not be able to kick right now with needing a hip replacement, but I like
Mhm.
knowing I have power. I like knowing I know I'm going into Walmart looking for someone to beat up. Don't get me wrong, but I know if someone were to get aggressive with me, I know how to take care of myself. Um, it's not a pride wouldn't be the word for it. It's just, but also too, like the other day, I did have a child who was autistic, and I've had clients get quite aggressive with me because of just going through the hormones, how they are, visual impairment, and it's just nice knowing because I can work with them and then bring them into like a sitting position, and they're kind of like, what just happened? So when someone goes to attack me, I'm not looking to hurt them, but I deflect their power and change it. And so for a child too that's special needs, they're kind of like what just happened? Because they're just used to being, they get aggressive and they just want to grab and just, it's all, and that too, like if you see me, it's all about rotation, which is what
Yeah.
I'm going for. So, if you're blocking, whether hitting, it's all rotation. So it's just my work and I just love it. But it gives me aspects of being beyond just being a practitioner.
For many kids, martial arts may be the first place they feel successful physically, and that feeling can carry into other parts of life.
It carries into other parts of life because I think a lot of it is the structure, but also too, a lot of kiddos, especially that have maybe too shy, like you're thinking about don't do it because they're shy or these kind of things. Martial arts, it's sort of like I've been there and you have people wanting to take care of you versus, don't think of it as like, oh, you're shy, you can't do this. We need you to be that's in the movies, right? And two, you can appreciate when someone can do something really well. And that's the first time too, I think a lot of kids start seeing not where they have limitations, like I want to learn how to do that. That was really cool. Like breaking a board. The first time you break a board, yeah, I have a video somewhere of Graham doing that. Now he couldn't break a board with a
Mhm.
punch, but he got to kick and break a board. And he would, what I mean, like, so it's just they just make it cool to be you, but to go above and beyond that. And if you can take that quality and put it into school or put it into like drawing a picture and drawing, it's the same thing. It's not like it's not like you're fighting and then you're not, you know. There's so many aspects of martial arts that really, like I said, I think everybody should do it. And what it's nice too, like even the fact that I did it with my kids, I didn't because I was at a different level. I started then as a white belt. They were already they outranked me in the dojo. The kids thought that was cool.
For families considering martial arts for their child, what should they look for in a program?
First of all, our other families doing it, but you know what? I was the first parent. Now going back, it's just nice to see a very family atmosphere. But even parents need like, well, if she's doing it, maybe I should do it. But really, to go against your child and fighting against your 14-year-old, like that was fun. But I will say this, my older one realized you're not supposed to wear earrings, and I had my earrings in, and he back knuckled me to the head. And oh, I know. And my earring post went into me, and I was like, when he realized I was wearing earring, and that little stick, he would do everything to whack me in the head. And you know, that was cool. But one time he outside of karate, he got a little mouthy with me. My kids were never mouthy. I back checked him against the wall and I said, just remember, I'm still your mother and I see you on Friday. So, you know what I mean? Like I'm always a parent, but in the dojo, I was allowed to be like not their buddy, but their cop. You know what I mean? Like it gave a different perspective to parenting, and so that part is cool. Like I said, and the young lady that was, she was blind. She was visually impaired, but and she tested. And so when again, when you're testing, you have to sit there at attention and be respectful. But the kids were like, so she can see a little bit, right? And I said, she doesn't even have, those aren't her eyes. Prosthetics are artificial eyes. And they're like, she's that good and she can't see, so I mean, it made them, like the kids didn't see her as even just having empathy. They were like, I want to be like her. Like she can't see, she can do that. And so that part, like again, is just so cool. I don't think you get that outside sometimes.
Karate isn't just kicking and punching. It's structured movement, embodied language, discipline through repetition. And sometimes, it's the place where a child discovers their strength. Michelle, thank you for sharing Graham's journey.
You're more than welcome. It really is more than that. Like I said, if you think it's someplace where you're going to learn how to fight or beat up somebody, you're really going to learn how to be top of the world. And again, look at my grandmaster, Chuck Norris. He's never had a street fight. He's taught Bruce Lee. He's been in many movies. I didn't know him as the movie star. I knew him as the karate instructor. Um, he practices what he preaches, and his kids do karate. My son has actually fought against my oldest fought against his youngest, his twins, and so it's about family. It's about structure, and also I will add this before we go. Don't take this the wrong way. It was an area that my son for a moment, and this meant a lot back then because he was nonverbal and so forth. He wasn't special needs. He was a student doing karate. And he did his first jumping jacks in karate at 15. And that's when the special needs parent came out. I'm like, you just did a jumping jack. Like, okay, special needs parent, sorry, because again, nobody saw that part of him in there. So, it really thank you for letting me talk about all these things. And really, guys, we have this podcast to keep you informed, but really to show you opportunities that you can help your child with, whether it's a medical journey or a karate. But let's talk about next year. You say, Kay, about getting into school because you're still a college student.
Next time on Rock the World with Kay and Michelle, we'll talk about transitioning to a new school year or a new school, especially when special needs are part of the picture. Until next time, keep rocking the world.
Thank you so much. Rocket.